career as the place where your deepest interests and the greatest needs of the world intersect. You've found that intersection, and we're grateful that you've chosen to be master practitioners and advocates. Godspeed as you continue to do so.
Many thanks to Dr. Ward for those uplifting and inspiring words of welcome. They have aptly ushered us in to this keynote celebration. The 70th anniversary is referred to as the Platinum Year. It is a year that hallmarks the strength, endurance, integrity, and rarity of a commitment and partnership. Our state has made it a mission to annually provide quality professional development and opportunities for networking for over 70 years to those who instruct and serve our students with exceptional needs. While today you can search the web and find a multitude of conferences and events available in multiple genres and fields, this was not possible in 1950. Events such as these were few, and those that focused on serving students with exceptional needs were even less. North Carolina has truly been a pioneer in ensuring that our teachers and service providers were given the information, education they needed to have the greatest impact on our students. Today, we will journey back in time and learn from those who came before us, highlight our major accomplishments, and look forward to the future. Our tour guide for this journey is our own Mr. David Mills. David has served in the Exceptional Children's Division since 1970 and has the distinct honor of working with most of the past state directors we will be hearing from or about today. Please help me welcome Mr. David Mills as he takes us back to the beginning of our division and conference under the leadership of our very first state director, Mr. Felix Barker.
Greetings and good morning. When the division planners talked about this 70th conference, they thought, who might give some historical perspective, since that's much of what we're about at this conference. And someone said, who has been around a long time? And someone said, well, what about David Mills? Another person said, I understand, is he still above ground? And then someone else says, well, what about his faculties? Another person says, well, I saw him not too long ago in Costco buying a big box of Depends. So, and we had a nice conversation. So I want you to know that Sherry and staff, you can depend on me. Shortly after World War II, the disciplines of medicine, rehabilitation, and education were awakening to the realization that more could be done for children and youth who were thought to be untreatable and uneducable. In 1947, I like to think that stars fell on North Carolina. That was the year the General Assembly, in its charitable wisdom, authorized the State Board of Education to provide funds for the regular state budget to support a program of special education in the then 172 school districts, and today we have 115. For nearly a century, the state had provided residential schools for children who were deaf and for children who were blind, but no state provisions were made for public day schools to serve the children with disabilities. North Carolina's 4 residential centers for the intellectually disabled and the state's 3 psychiatric hospitals were considered the primary environments for placement of children and youth. Following this 1947 legislation that was brought to our attention by Superintendent Truitt, the Division of Special Education was created by the State Board of Education and the then Superintendent, Clyde Irwin. That was 1948. To oversee this newly created special education program in the school districts, Superintendent Irwin chose Felix Scott Barker, who at that time was on staff in the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And in those days, the Rehabilitation Division, which is now in the Department of Health and Human Services, was in the Department of Public Instruction. Funding was provided for Mr. Barker's salary and a secretary. He was a one-person supervisor in the division until 1955-56 school year, when he was then named the division director, and a second person was employed and given the title Supervisor of Mental Disabilities. In those days, we would say mental retardation. Today, much appreciation is owed Mr. Barker for his leadership in shaping the education of children and youth with special needs. At the time he stepped into leadership, the disciplines of education and medicine were what today we might call a backward age. In 1950, a leading textbook entitled Introduction to Exceptional Children referred to individuals in the three main areas of intellectual disabilities as morons, imbeciles, and idiots. And I have in my file a letter to parents from a doctor that says, I'm sorry to report that the diagnostic information says that your child is an idiot. Thankfully, we have no records in the Department of Public Instruction referring to these children with such degrading terms. In the second year of Mr. Barker's terms as the lone supervisor of special education, the disability areas were recognized by the state, and those disability areas were cerebral palsy, crippled, hard of hearing, slow learning, speech defective, and visually handicapped. There were 2,161 children identified and served, and 54 teachers employed in special education. 25 of those were paid by state funds, and 29 came from other sources. 20 years later, in 1968-69, the year of Mr. Barker's retirement, the exceptional children classified had increased to 10 and included hospital homebound, the learning disabled, the emotionally disturbed, and gifted and talented. That year, 84,069 students were reported as being served by 2,600 teachers and speech-language pathologists. That was an increase of over 81,000 children and 2,500 teachers and speech-language pathologists in the course of about 10 years. Regrettably, little information is known in the archives of the Department of Public Instruction and also in the Department of Archives and Records at the state about Mr. Barker. And no family has been identified who can give us information. And with thanks to the Council for Exceptional Children and a person in this audience this morning, we gain insight into Mr. Barker's work. And at this time, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Eleanor Boyd Wright. Dr. Wright, would you please stand? Dr. Wright is a former director of special education in Guilford County and was a distinguished member of the University of North Carolina at Wilmington in the area of exceptional child education. She also did work at Appalachian State University, and she also worked at East Carolina University. She retired as an associate professor emerita from UNC Wilmington. During much of Mr. Barker's term, Dr. Wright was one of only 7 in the 1960s, one of 7 local directors in the entire state. Dr. Wright, Eleanor, we thank you for your service to North Carolina's children. You honor us with your presence. Best wishes in your continued retirement. And let me say to you on behalf of all the school systems in North Carolina, should you wish to return to teaching, we have a spot for you. Thank you so much. And as much as I know you'd like to speak to this audience, I'm not giving you the mic. In 1953, the Exceptional Children Bulletin in North Carolina identified more specifically Mr. Barker's philosophy for serving children and youth with unique learning needs. Notice these. These specific points he presented 68 years ago were these: educate all children regardless of the degree of disability, provide educational opportunity consistent with students' learning needs. Thirdly, public schools can provide educational services that enable all children to develop feelings of adequacy and self-satisfaction. The needs of most children can be met in the regular classroom by the regular classroom teacher. More children with disabilities can be placed in general education classrooms. Broad objectives of education are much the same for all children. The responsibility of special education is to provide for those children within the public school system, to see to it that they are not necessarily isolated from children of their own age, and to find ways for them to participate in activities and learning experiences with other children. 21 years later, with the passage of North Carolina's first special education law, 1974, and the following year with the passage of the federal legislation for exceptional children, 1975, Mr. Barker's 7 belief statements became the law of the land. Although in retirement, he did live to see his vision become a reality that all means all. For Mr. Barker, we're thankful. Felix Scott Barker, our first state director of exceptional child education, will be remembered for his tireless efforts to enhance special education in very limited funds. And as Dr. Eleanor Board-Wright has written about him, as a leader who sought expert advice, who surrounded himself with capable staff, found resources for shared vision, collaborated with those who had a shared interest, and was always committed to the highest quality of education opportunity for children and youth, especially those with special needs. As we remember today, we give thanks for the service and legacy of our first state director of exceptional child education, Felix Scott Barker. We now travel a bit further through the decades to our state's second director of exceptional children, George Cady. Mr. Cady, now aged 99, granted us the privilege of sitting with him in Chapel Hill and listening to his journey as an educator and leader. We now share a portion of that interview with you. Mr. Cady.
I became principal of Thompson Elementary School in Raleigh. And in that school, we had a number of handicapped children, of different kinds of handicaps. We didn't know a whole lot about programs for handicapped children at that time, but I did know enough that we wanted to start some classes there. So fortunately, I had a PTA president, Mrs. Eben Watson. She knew some legislators. I went to the legislature and talked them into providing some funds for the Raleigh Public Schools for us to start some classes for handicapped children. We saw that working with those children and helping them have hope for a better life, along with their parents and siblings and other people they came in contact with. I was happy to have that position as state director of special education. Funding was very poor in the very beginning. That was one of the main problem. And then there were not many teachers who had been trained in working with exceptional children. Fortunately, the University of North Carolina brought in several people who became experts in programs for exceptional children. Dr. Phillips became a great proponent for handicapped children. Dr. Phillips, the state superintendent, and I went over to see Governor Bob Scott over in the governor's office, and Bob Scott became a real proponent of exceptional children's program. He brought in some of the legislators so that we could talk to them about what our needs were, and what we felt that we could do to help the people of North Carolina who had exceptional children. fondest memory was meeting with a group of parents who were very much interested in the programs throughout the state, who had high hopes, and they showed that these programs had an effect on the lives not only of the children, but on their parents as well. Your acts of kindness are the things that bring about most satisfaction to you in your later life. And you recall those things, and I think teachers would be mindful of that. You're doing a wonderful job. You're making the lives of these people worth living. You're helping society as a whole. And you're doing a great job for your state.
And we give thanks to Mr. Cady for his advocacy, compassion, and the work that he did with leadership. We thank Mr. Cady, and we wish him continued the best. The third director to lead the state's effort in the education of children, youth with disabilities is Theodore R. Drain, known by all of us as Ted, and I will refer to him as Ted. It is with regret that he cannot be here today, and he sends his greetings, however, and I'm honored to speak on his behalf and talk about some of the things during his tenure. Ted assumed the directorship in 1972, and when State Superintendent Craig Felix appointed Mr. Cady to the Deputy Assistant State Superintendent for Program Services in the department. Ted had prepared himself at Johnson C. Smith and also at North Carolina Central University with further academic work at Syracuse University. And his classroom work was done as a teacher of children with special needs in the Charlotte Mecklenburg schools at the elementary level and also at the middle grades. During Ted's 13 years as division director, a number of noteworthy happenings occurred in the education of exceptional children, projecting North Carolina into the forefront of special education in the nation, and I'm pleased to say remains so to this day, and with thanks to people in this room and also to your colleagues back home. Now, some of the accomplishment I'll point out during Ted's time as director, some that he initiated himself and others were happening nationwide for which that under his leadership and others who worked with him. The first is the Exceptional Children Material Center was expanded. In those days, local school systems had almost no money, and so the state did provide for 4 regional centers around the state so teachers, related services personnel, parents and administrators, and others could check out materials to use in their classrooms. The next is Exceptional Children's Division was reorganized for better serving children, and that reorganization has some familiarity today. The lawsuit against the state by the Association for Retarded Citizens was a big thing. A wave of litigation was happening in the early 70s across the state as the rights and treatment of people with retardation welcomed the 1970s. North Carolina was no exception. The North Carolina Association for Retarded Citizens, we know it now as the ARC, brought a lawsuit against the state of North Carolina, and the exceptional children, instead of moaning about that, readily accepted the opportunity to work with the association to get more and better services for children with mental disabilities, which in turn was beneficial for all children in North Carolina. In 1974, something that is not known widely today is that North Carolina was one of the first, and perhaps was the second, state to mandate special education and comprehensive services for all children with disabilities. And they passed that legislation. One interesting thing about that piece of legislation that surprised all of us was that included in the then 10 areas of disability, they added these: pregnant schoolgirls as disabled, dependent children as disabled, socially maladjusted as disabled, and abused and neglected children. The division began working with the legislators of North Carolina to see that it was inappropriate to classify these children as having a disability, although they did need services, and set forth to do that. In 1975, Congress passed what many of you know is 94-142, the Education for the Handicapped Act. This new law today is known as IDEA, and it required North Carolina to immediately begin systematic staff development, assuring that all superintendents, central office personnel, teachers, and others became acquainted with new vocabulary and updated educational practices. The educator's new lexicon includes such words as FAPE, you know so well, non-discriminatory assessment, confidentiality, IEP development, least restrictive environment placement, compliance monitoring, and the like. Congress did see fit to delay the implementation of IEP development until 1977, giving local school systems across this nation opportunity to learn what IEPs were about and also learn how to write them. Mrs. Mills and I were the first persons in Wake County schools in 1976 on a trial basis to write an IEP for our son George, and I still have a copy of that, I think I do, of that IEP. It was 40 pages long. And today, and you know what we put in there? The teacher will instead of the child will. Oh, how backward we were. But it was written well, pretty, and but it was not worth the paper it was written on. So we had all of that to contend with. That was the federal legislation that's impacting us today, for which we're so grateful. And then in 1977, the North Carolina's Equal Opportunities Act was revived, that which was passed in 1974, and it became the law of the land. And Ted worked very closely with Senator Bill Creech and other legislators to revise that 74 legislation, bringing North Carolina's law into compliance with federal law, and in so doing, removing those 4 areas that were not disability. 8 regional education centers were established, bringing the State Department of Public Instruction closer to the local school systems, and especially to help with areas of compliance monitoring and other areas and other aspects of the law. I can't tell you how important that was to get services close to the local school, and especially to teachers and others. And then the special education guidelines became policy. For years, we'd had a best practices guidelines in each area of disability. But then, during this time, they became policy, law, meaning those things that will be monitored and the regulations that will be followed. And then, based on that, a policy monitoring audit section was created. In addition to the regular staff concerned about training in the area of curriculum and instruction, the exceptional children had to create a policy and monitoring staff to assist local school systems to meet the federal and state requirements of child find, IEP development, evaluations, and to prepare for on-site visits from the state and from the U.S. Office of Education. Also, increased attention was given to the needs of parents and children. The needs of parents had long been recognized, but so little had been done from the state. And a state parent advisory committee was organized, and the Exceptional Children Assistance Center was created. Many good things have happened in North Carolina due to parents of children with unique learning needs. And then a state advisory committee for exceptional children was created, and the purpose of this advisory committee was and is to assist the Exceptional Children's Division to keep before the State Board of Education the needs of children, parents, and teachers. And then a very interesting thing happened in North Carolina. The Willie M. section was created in the Exceptional Children's Division and for exceptional children across the state. In 1979, State Judge George Basin said, "It is a disgrace that a state can afford a brand new multi-million-dollar veterinary school to cure cows and cats, won't treat its own badly sick children." Judge Basin was referring to 4 children, one of whose name was Willie M., who had been in and out of schools and treatment centers for a long period of time with no attention or lacking attention to their deep-seated needs as aggressive, assaultive children. In response to that court order, North Carolina began educational and treatment services for these children, and when the Exceptional Children's Division was created, a Willie M. section to work with local schools with these children. Although very difficult in many ways, very good things happen to youth with serious behavioral needs. And good things are happening for those children today, although as everyone in this room realizes, it is still not easy. After 13 years as division director, Ted was appointed to the assistant superintendent position in the Department of Public Instruction. From there, he went on to be director of special education in Kentucky, and upon returning to North Carolina, he finished his professional career in Durham County Schools, first as an associate superintendent and then as an interim superintendent. People who worked with Ted remember him as a person with original ideas, one who planned with imagination and was skilled in organizational management. For the accomplishments that came during his time as director, he says they were made possible because of good and dedicated people who worked diligently to assure good things happen to North Carolina's children and youth with unique learning needs. And when Ted was asked, what words of encouragement would you say if you could be standing here today talking to these good folk? He said, be insistent, be persistent, and always remember why you chose your profession. To Ted Drain, we say thank you for a job well done. We now are given the honor of listening to Lowell Harris, our fourth state director of special education. Lowell worked with Felix Barker, George Cady, and Ted Drain, and he played a significant role in the promotion of increased services for exceptional children. He also freely gave of his time to share moments with the past and words of wisdom with us, and we're humbled to get to share that experience at this time. We now will hear from Lowell Harris.
In 1968, I had a decision to make. There was a job open nearby in a sheltered workshop as whatever you call it, the director of the sheltered workshop. Or the superintendent said, I want you to be an assistant principal, go back to school, get your principal certificate, and I want you to be a principal here. Or I could apply for the head basketball job, which had always been my dream, but I had a surprise one day. A State Department consultant came to my room and said, Lowell, would you like to come to the State Department? I thought about it. Number one, I love special education kids. I loved them, and I wanted to work with them because now sports is secondary. Came to the State Department and had an interview with Felix Barker. And that's when my journey started with the State Department of Public Instruction. Then we developed an occupational course of study. And I thought back at that time, I said, well, I've had some experience with that in high school, working with the work study. We called it the work study program, where we made sure that they related or associated their academics with their work and getting them ready for life. Anyway, creating all kind of alternative learning. Special assessments. We created an alternative assessment because that was a big thing back then, is how are you going to measure the success of these students? So we created the alternative assessment. Back then, we really geared ourselves up to deal with 94-142. One of the jobs that I had was to lead a team, a small team, in developing a state law that would be in compliance with the federal law. So we worked on that, and I had one copy. And I was to give a workshop down in Lillington. I had it in my car. And I was on the way, and a lady ran a stop sign. It was pouring down rain. It ran right into me, threw me out of the car. I got out, and my head was split all the way down, and I was laying up on the bank. So the police came, the ambulances came, and whatever, and they said, we got to get you to the hospital. And I said, look, I said, down there in that car, I have important papers. They're the state board regulations, and I am not going to go to the hospital if you don't get those papers. And he said, what do you mean? You got to go to the hospital. I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to sit right here. I'm not going to the hospital unless I get these papers. So he had somebody to go down in a box and pull up these papers and put them in the box. So they took me to the hospital, and I never will forget, this guy was walking along behind us. They had me on a stretcher, and he was walking along with my box right behind him. First of all, keep the faith. Issues are going to be a part of the game. You're never going to have anything where they're not issues. But I can tell you this, it's worth it. Develop teams locally. Because if you're a teacher of children with disabilities, you really are a missionary. And I say that because you're an advocate. You don't just teach the subjects, you love your children, and you're going to continue being an advocate. Another thing is, remember, time is short. Time flies. When you look back over your career, and I mentioned about being proud, you just look those kids that you taught in the eyes, and you just be thankful that you had an opportunity to deal with those students, because that's what it's all about. And I promise you that you will have a great career, and one day you will look back and you will say, I don't think I would ever want to do anything else, because I work with children with disabilities.
I know our time is somewhat short, but I have to tell you a story. We could regale you with many stories that come to us at the State Department about many things. And Lowell called me to his office, and he said, I just had a most interesting conversation with a parent who called, and she said, can the principal keep me from going into the classroom that my child is in? And Lowell said, well, don't think so. Said, the school's open. And she said, well, said, I've been taking pictures outside the window because he won't let me in the school. I've been taking some videos. And she said, he won't let me in. And Laura says, well, I can't think of any reason. She said, can you think of any reason why he wouldn't let you in? She said, no, I can't think. Oh, I did try to run over him with my car one time. So some of the principals have had life-threatening situations. Well, we're grateful for Lowell, and we wanted to have Dorothy come today, but she told me, she said, I don't want to drive 80 miles to hear Lowell. I hear enough of him at home. And so, Lowell, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being here today. And now, would you please stand and be recognized? Your stewardship, your compassion, and your integrity, we give you thanks. It's appropriate to say that we're grateful for make sure that the regulations did not disappear. And please accept our best wishes. As we move into the 21st century, we will hear from our 5th director and the first woman to lead in this position, Mayor Watson, and she did it well. Mayor graciously granted us the opportunity to look back at her tenure and share her thoughts and perspective, and we will now hear a portion of that interview.
While I was getting my master's degree, this was long before 94-142, I had children in my classroom that needed more. And I continued to think, and when I had the opportunity in master's program, write papers about what could be done for children who were not learning and still retained in 5th grade. And my committee chair asked me at one time when I was about to finish my elementary master's, he said, there's this new law that's coming out that I think you'll be interested in. So that was the passing of 94-142, and I stayed, went back to graduate school to pursue a master's in special education. And as I started working in schools, having the background in both elementary education and special education was a great mix. I went on to pursue a degree in administration and really thought I'd become an elementary school principal. And I did the internship and some interims as an elementary school principal and had the opportunity to come work at the Department of Public Instruction in the Technical Assistance Center. I applied for a job in the Exceptional Children Division and became a monitor, worked in the monitoring and policy section. I worked in the grants administration section, became the policy chief, and later became the director of special education. Working in the Exceptional Children Division and having the opportunity and the honor to be the director of the Exceptional Children Division was truly a highlight, and I will have to say I enjoyed every single day. I'm not saying every day was easy, but I had the opportunity to work with a team of people who were passionate about their work and about their what they could do for schools and classrooms and children and families. And so every day it was like, it was the joy of putting the pieces together and making things work and work better. It was truly a highlight. When I first became director of Exceptional Children, and the couple of years before when I was working as a section chief for policy, was the passing of IDEA, the reauthorization of 97, and then when the implementing regulations came out, the language was very strong in the reauthorized IDEA about the improved achievement for students with disabilities and including them in all statewide assessments. So that was a real culture shift and a real exciting time, because for the first time we were including children, and it was written right into the federal regulations in our statewide assessments. There are many accomplishments that I'm very proud of, but I think being a part of a team that really changed the culture of special education in our state, from a culture of looking at compliance and legal responsibilities and inclusion of children in classrooms, to a culture of really looking at what are we doing with literacy, what are we doing with math, what are we doing in social emotional outcomes for students with disabilities, was very exciting, and I'm very proud of the accomplishments that were made. Along with that, building our own professional development was an exciting thing I'm very pleased about, that we were able to provide to the LEAs in North Carolina the professional development that was needed to really change those outcomes for students and build a training of trainer models that's still going on today with the professional development. I do often have an opportunity to give advice to teachers of exceptional children today, and my advice is always to hang in there. It's a tough profession, but it is a very rewarding profession, and you really never know the difference you're making in a child's life when you're day in and day out. It's in reflection, and when sometimes some of your children get older and come back to you, but the words you say, the encouragement you give, the opportunities you provide makes such a big difference to so many children. Well, I'm very biased about the programs North Carolina provides, so I would say North Carolina is among the top in the nation in providing services for students with disabilities. We've had an Exceptional Children Division for 70 years now. I believe we're celebrating the 70th conference anyway. We have a great professional development system working with schools and districts across the state and training teachers. I think we're among the best, and our student outcomes show that.
And how good it is that Mary can be with us today. Mary, would you please stand? We thank you for those encouraging words and for leading North Carolina forward, promoting evidence-based instruction and increased professional development. Please accept our best wishes always. In 2013, following Mary, Bill Hussey became our 6th director in Exceptional Children Division. And Bill, not able to be here today, but kindly sends his greetings and also provided us an opportunity to reflect on his time with a video. And the following are highlights from that interview. Bill Hussey.
came up here and was a SED or BED consultant for about a year or so, and then went on to be the Willie M. section chief when George Griffin left. Started my own business and started doing consulting work, and then came back to the state system in Durham. Was working in Durham when the opportunity came for me to go to Alamance County to be the EC director, and I did that. And then from there to here, I think we were beginning to shift people. Mary had done a nice job of looking at intervention and understanding interventions. And I think we took it a next step forward through the MTSS process to look at what we needed to do to teach kids how to learn around the skill deficits they had, and identified and assessed through the special ed process. And I think, I think we were going down the road, and obviously in the context of that, we picked up ECATS, which is the data system that incorporates all the learning both from a special ed side and MTSS as well, and tried to look at early intervention and prevention within the context of MTSS to try to slow down the number of kids coming into special ed. We've got to guarantee that we keep working on the funding formula, because we cannot work on a funding formula that is the same for every kid, which is what we've got and what we've had since 1993. And we're woefully underfunded, and we're not able to look at kids who need more and kids who need less. Every kid gets the same, and that shouldn't be the way it is. It is, for the bucks, the best purchase that a teacher and that a system and that we as a state can have. I mean, what it does and how it does what it does in getting that information across, and what it does in bringing teachers together. I mean, when you stand up there in front of those however many thousands of people are out in front, and they're all special ed teachers, that gets you right here. That makes you feel incredibly proud to be considered the state director at that point, because these people, they're listening to what we have to say, and they're paying attention, and they're taking advantage of it. It's imperative that inclusion becomes a more active process, and that it's not just what special ed brings to regular ed. What does regular ed also give back to the special ed side of that, and how do they work on that piece? We're not going to fix kids on our own out here. It's got to be something that's in the classroom, around the regular content curriculum, and what we can do to help those kids learn that. We're doing the right thing for kids. I think we really are, and I think Sherry's continuing that belief. That's our purpose, is to figure out how to work with kids and make them better able through the academic piece, as well as just people beginning to understand their value. These kids are good kids. These kids have capacity to learn. I know at one time, and people didn't believe our ID mild or our ID moderate kids could really learn. I think that was one of the things that we saw both here and when I was at the local district. We saw kids who people had pretty much written off as having capacity to truly learn. And so I think you just have to keep pushing. You have to keep engaged. You have to keep working at what that kid needs. And if you can flip that switch on in the regular ed world between a principal and those regular ed teachers in the school that we're talking about, whatever school that is, you got a chance.
Did you notice one commonality that we share, Bill Hussey and I? We both part our hair in the middle. we do thank Bill Hussey for his passion, his compassion, and taking time to share his thoughts with us today. One thing about Bill always, he was like our other directors, child focus. Regulation's good, but child always. And we thank him for that, and we extend best wishes for his continued good life. Well, as the lady was going to the end of the street, she said, I'm nearing my close. And so I'm nearing my close today, and I want you to know that I've said more than I know, but I've said it well. And, well, as really our journey has brought us to the present, and we bring back to the podium our 7th and current Exceptional Children Director, Sherry Thomas. And she's continued the legacy of her predecessors of ensuring that our focus remains serving students with unique learning needs. She makes this her mission in providing for teachers and other service providers with the knowledge and tools needed to adapt and respond and embrace the obstacles that face education today. Now, please again welcome Sherry Thomas as she shares her perspective as director. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for those kind words. I'm glad we didn't pay you extra for the comedy. As I viewed these interviews and listened to the milestones and accomplishments for each period, I realized that there really is a commonality among them all. From the very beginning, determination, perseverance, and most importantly, compassion for our students and families really have been the cornerstone characteristics of those who serve in this challenging and rewarding field. It truly is my pleasure to serve as the director of the Exceptional Children Division. It provides me with that honor of working alongside each and all of you every day. As our leaders shared in their videos, you are making a difference in the lives of each of the students you teach or support and inspire each day. In the past 20 months, you have modeled resiliency in one of the most difficult times, not only in the field of education, but in the world. Your unwavering commitment to ensuring our students thrive will be a beacon for future teachers and service providers to step up and answer the call. Just as we stand upon the brave, steadfast shoulders, I can't talk, of those who have come before us, future teachers will find that foundation and support upon yours. Never doubt the impact you have made and are continuing to make in the lives of your students and the students of future educators, and I'm going to add, and to the families. We are grateful for each and every one of you. As we bring this presentation to a close, I don't want you to leave yet because we've got important stuff yet to do, so just hang tight. Plenty of lunches, I promise. I would like to recognize again these past directors who were able to join us today, those who may be watching from afar, and those who are no longer with us. To say we are grateful for you and your accomplishments would be an understatement. We know you each faced your own giants and blazed trails when there were no maps to follow. You stood firm, provided guidance and support for so many educators, and you led North Carolina to an unparalleled model of excellence. Please stand and join me in expressing our appreciation to Mr. Felix Barker, Mr. George Cady, Mr. Ted Drain, Mr. Lowell Harris, Ms. Mary Watson, and Mr. Bill Hussey. I'm so appreciative of their time with the videos and with the interviews. These reflections and words of inspiration will stay with us as we journey forward to continue to serve the students of North Carolina. I would like to take just a moment or two to thank some very special people for their contributions today. First, to our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. David Mills. David, my most heartfelt gratitude for what you have done. David has spent countless hours researching, pulling files and information, making phone calls to these former directors you've heard from today. He spent hours at the State Archives. He's investigated the N&O archives, the News and Observer paper in Raleigh. He's been in the basement of DPI digging through archives. And he sifted through his own files to gather so much information that was shared today. Through his efforts for this plenary session, he has created a truly historical database and documentation that will forever memorialize the work that has been accomplished in North Carolina and has created a way to capture those yet to come in accomplishments. This historical reflection will indeed be what was a vision to now a reality, and I thank you for that. I can't thank you enough for your time and energy in this great collection of history. I'd also like to thank Ginger Cash and Ginger Starling, who have worked closely with David. And when I said, will you please coordinate the plenary, I don't think they had any idea what that was going to encompass, but they have spent months and hours pulling all of this information together. So Ginger and Ginger, thank you so much. Next, I'd like to thank Ms. Elaine Darby. She's at the back, I think. You see her with a camera. She is our videographer who expertly and thoughtfully put together all the interview videos that you saw today. Without your help, Elaine, we would not have had these captured stories and history. So thank you so much. And then finally, I want to thank all of you, because without you, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be having a conference. Thank you for what you do each and every day to support our students with disabilities. This job is not an easy one, but know that you are making such a huge impact each and every day for our students, our families, and those who serve in the field of education. Okay, I'm not going to get too emotional. We're going to move on and get to lunch. It's been a terrific morning for me. I hope it has for you. But I have a few important pieces of information, so I want you to remain seated so I can go through these. Remember to refer to your app for information on all conference details. Please remember the Educator of Excellence reception, which will be here in this ballroom, all opened up with that back wall gone. We will begin at 6:30 and should be finished by 8 o'clock. After lunch, the next instructional sessions will begin promptly at 1 p.m. Make sure you get to those sessions early. Remember, some can fill up, and we will be posting those session full signs. Please remember to wear your wristband that you have while you are attending the conference. This is a way to get in a session and also to pick up your meals. And also, please make sure you're wearing your mask in those sessions to protect each other during this time. Speaking of lunch, the boxed lunches and drinks are available immediately after the session. However, please exit in a safe and orderly fashion. There is I know, you're laughing because you've been through this before, right? There is plenty of food, I do promise that, and there's plenty of time to enjoy your lunch. Just remember, personal space is still an important issue for us to all be mindful for, and remember that as you're standing in line. When you exit, please go out these doors to my right, to your left. Please do not try to go out the back. My bouncers are back there from the division. They're not going to let you through. Do not go through these doors or they'll put you to work because that's staff, okay? Unless you want to wait for the hotel, do not go through those doors. What else do I need to tell you? Please be polite and professional and respect these rules that we've asked you to abide by during the conference. They are all set in place to keep us all as safe as possible. If you ordered a special meal, which I think is gluten-free or vegetarian, please go to Guilford D, which will be the room on my far right at the back. So around that desk, you'll come into Guilford D, and those meals will be there for you to pick up. They are limited to those who registered for a special meal at registration time. Also, please use your lunchtime and the time between the 1 o'clock session to visit our vendors that are upstairs. They have paid to be here. They have great information to share with you, and we hope you will visit up there. Lowell, Mary, and David, along with Dr. Edmonds and myself, will be around. We're all spending the time here today at the conference, and Dr. Edmonds and I will be here tomorrow as well. We'd love to see you. Please come speak, say hello, introduce yourself. Thanks so much for your patience and your attention. I don't believe I've ever sat through a plenary that was this attentive and quiet. And I hope that means you were overwhelmed with our history. I cannot imagine how Felix Barker did this for, 11 years by himself. I would be in that lunatic label by this time, David, if that was me. Have a great lunch. Enjoy your sessions. And we hope to see you tonight. Have a great time. And yes, the 5th season will be opened at 8 o'clock, so please come join us.